back to lockdown youth. But the good news is we're here. Jesus is awesome. We have technology so we can still see one another. Anyways, Pastor Brendan here. I'm excited for tonight's topic. I think it's such an important one to dive into. Like last week, where we talked about the resurrection, we gave 5 reasons why there's historical evidence, why we believe the resurrection actually happened. We believe in a God of miracles who is powerful and in control. So whatever you're going through, may that comfort you, knowing that we have an amazing God who's big, he's huge. If you're struggling right now, oh man, we got myself and youth leaders. We're here for you. We want to love and support and encourage you and challenge you to keep doing amazing, to keep going through this season of life. Christmas is coming. That's amazing. Anyways, tonight's topic, super important. Was and is Jesus God? Did Jesus claim to be God? I heard about a survey that happened a few years ago about a bunch of millennial Christians, ones who were attending church, millennials being 25 to 40-year-olds. That's my age bracket. My homies, we're the selfish generation. Has nothing to do with this question. The question was to them, do you believe that it's important that Jesus is God? And do you know what they responded? Only 50%, only half of them were like, yeah, it's important that Jesus is God. And so I want to throw that question right back to you guys. What do you think? Why is it important that Jesus is God? Go. Have any of you ever seen an optical illusion photo like this one? They're a little bit trippy, but also super impressive. What did you see first? Did you see the old couple or the young couple first with the guy playing the guitar? Once you kind of see the one you didn't see at first, whether the old couple or the young couple, once you see the next one, it's almost hard to see the first one again sometimes, isn't it? What I want to suggest is the question whether or not the Bible claims that Jesus is God is a little bit like this optical illusion. When you first look at the text, you might assume that it doesn't claim Jesus is divine, and that's simply because Jesus never says the words, I am God. They're not in the Bible. But to the first century Jews, and these people, they were hardcore monotheists, meaning they believed there was only one God, and to say anything else was blasphemy. And in Jewish law, that was literally a punishable crime. And that actually brings us to our first point tonight, which is Jesus' death. All right, what was it that got Jesus killed? Was it the good things that Jesus was teaching? Like, he had all these amazing stories. He had this powerful teaching. They're like, man, this dude teaches with authority. He's amazing. And people just flocked and they just wanted to hang on every word that Jesus was speaking. And then to go above that, he did all these miracles and these signs and he was healing people. So why did they kill him? It wasn't for any of those things. The reason they killed Jesus was because he was claiming to be God. He was claiming to be Yahweh, the one monotheistic God of the Old Testament come in the flesh. All right, listen to this. Jesus, this is in John chapter 8. He healed a man on the Sabbath. You might remember this crazy story. This man had a gibbled, shriveled up hand. And all Jesus does is say, hold out your hand. And in front of their eyes, this man just brings his arm out and his hand's restored. And this is what they say, because Jesus isn't supposed to do work on the Sabbath, and say, for this reason, this is John 5:18, they tried all the more to kill him. Because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. In that culture, Father and a Son would be equal, and Jesus was calling God his Father. In Mark chapter 11, Jesus says this is after he flipped tables, he's in the temple and he's teaching them, and he says, is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, talking about the temple, but you've made it a den of robbers. Then the chief priests and the teachers of the law, they heard this and they began to look away for killing Jesus. Why did they want to kill him? Because he said, my house, he talked about the temple as my house. Okay, and what is the temple? The temple is meant to be a place for the presence of God. It's God's house. It was nobody's house but God's. And Jesus is saying, look, this is my house and you're ruining it. And so it was after this claim that they're like, no, let's take him out because Jesus is claiming to be God. So the first point is that Jesus claimed to be God, and that is the reason that they killed him, because he was claiming to be God. It was clear in their culture. Point number 2 is talking about Jesus as the Son of Man. You probably remember the story where Jesus heals the paralyzed man. Essentially what happens, Jesus is teaching, it's a crowded house, and 4 friends bring their friend who's paralyzed, he can't walk, on a mat, and they can't get in the doors. So they head to the top of the house, this was common, stairs, go up, they dig through the roof. Don't do that today, it's pouring rain. They dig through the roof and lower this man down. And Jesus, when he sees their faith, he looks at him and he says, son, this guy's like, he can't walk. He says, son, your sins are forgiven. Luke chapter 5, 21. He says, who is this fellow who speaks blasphemy? All right, blasphemy is claiming to be God, or it's saying offensive things about God. It's throwing God under the bus. And then they say, who can forgive sins but God alone? They know that only God can forgive sin. And in verse 22, it says, Jesus knew what they were thinking and asked. All right, again, don't you wish sometimes you knew what other people were thinking? Well, Jesus was God, and so he actually could know what other people were thinking. And he says, why are you thinking these things in your hearts? He just totally calls them out. And then he says, what is easier to say? Your sins are forgiven, or to take up your mat and walk? And he says this, but I want you to know that the Son of Man, I'm going to talk about what the Son of Man means in a second, but I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. And so he said to the paralyzed man, I tell you, take your mat, get up, take your mat and go home. And immediately he stood up in front of them. He took what he had been lying on and he went home praising God. And everyone was amazed. They gave praise to God. They were filled with awe and said, we have seen remarkable things today. I love this story. It ends with praise. A man's sins are forgiven. He gets healed. They're praising God. It would have been an amazing thing to be a part of. But Jesus is the Son of Man. Now, to us in the modern world, we're not really like, what does he mean by the Son of Man? Well, this is a reference that comes from the Old Testament. It comes from the book of Daniel, chapter 7. Daniel's having a vision of God, and it says this, Daniel chapter 7:13. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, meaning appearance of a man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days. Ancient of Days is a word for God the Father, or Yahweh, the powerful God of the Old Testament. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into God's presence. And then he was given authority, glory, and sovereign power, all things only God has. And then all nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. Again, only God can receive worship. Then it says, his dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Okay, so the Jews would know this prophecy. They would know what the Son of Man is. They would think of this vision Daniel has of this heavenly man going to the throne of heaven and being given all authority. All right, which is what Jesus has. And Jesus often talks about himself throughout the Gospels as the Son of Man, which in first century Judaism, when Jesus lived, would have been a clear sign or a clear statement. Essentially, Jesus was saying, I am the Son of Man, I am God, I am Yahweh, come in the flesh to show you what God is like. One of my favorite verses is Colossians 1:15. It says, Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. And so this is just a small talk on why we believe that yes, Jesus is God, and yes, Jesus claimed to be God. And what we're going to do now in your small groups, you're going to take some time, do a little treasure hunting through the Bible, and look for some more passages that talk about Jesus being God. Have a great night, everyone.